Gilbert,
Julia,
Ross,
Josh,
Zara,
Lockie, Adrian, Michael,
Sheila, Marie,
Tim, Peter,
Saroja, Shanti,
Jane,
Helen,
Jacinta.
Dean,
and Bob.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good to see all these happy faces. What we talk about is what they call in the ancient scriptures non-duality, Advaita. Non-duality means one without a second, not two. Only the one essence that pattern, shapes, forms, experience, expresses as everything. And there is nothing other than that. And so, I don't know what you're here looking for. If it's only that. That's the great mantra, I am that. And don't we already know that? Because you say, that's the chair you're sitting in, that's the carpet on the floor, that's the room in the chair in the room, I should say. That's the chair, the flower, and everything is already that which we put labels or words on and discriminate it with the word. It's the one essence appearing, expressing as everything. And we've got this idea we are these individuals, these persons, these separate entities. And when you look at it and realise it's only me that can be fearful, only me that can be anxious, only me that can be unhappy or depressed or guilty, that me, that believed in this separate entity, this me, is the cause of all my psychological suffering, and realise that there is a way out of it. You don't have to be that poor, miserable human being that's having a bad trot or this, that or the other. And you realise your true nature. The one essence that pattern, shapes and forms, expresses and experiences as everything. They call it Atman or self in the scriptures, and they say there's only the one self, the one Atman. But we've got this idea we are these personal selves, these individual selves. And that's the cause of all the conflict. It's pointed out in a lot of the scriptures and all the text that that is all there is. And we've taken on this belief we are these separate entities. And living from that point of view, most of these so-called human lives have problems. But it's absolute. It's the one essence that pattern, shapes and forms experiences everything, has everything. And that needs to be recognised. They call it a cognising emptiness in Buddhism. And we think that that emptiness, that we are cognising that emptiness. But when you investigate it, you'll see that it's the emptiness itself that has that capacity of knowing or cognising. And the Buddha told you that a couple of thousand years ago when he said that emptiness is form. All these pattern shapes and forms, you, me, and everything else in this, everything is in these pattern shapes and forms. He says emptiness is form. All these forms are emptiness. And he turned it round the other way and said that the forms can be nothing other than the emptiness. So though we appear to be these separate entities in special forms, in innate nature and essence, we're all that cognising emptiness that vibrates into all these different pattern shapes and forms and expresses through them. Tells you in Isaiah in the Bible, be still and know that I am is God. You're looking for this thing or praying to this thing you believe is God or some superior being or higher power. And it tells you that I am, which is the same I am as you would express yourself. If somebody asks you your name, you'll say, I am so-and-so. But that I am is the godly soul, or the supreme being. And that's another label we have on it, supreme being. You call yourself a human being. And if you believe in this God, you'll call that what your concept is as a supreme being. What happens if you take that word human away? Take the word supreme away. And without the word, try and separate the beingness without the word that's dividing it. Can anyone negate your beingness right now? And beingness is not what was. It's not what will be. It's being. The ing on it gives us something that's happening right now. Anyone who's not being right now. And that's how they express the non-dual teachings. Sat, Chit and Ananda, Nama Rupa. Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is being, or loving to be. And the Nama Rupa, Nama is the name we've got on ourselves. The Rupa is the form. The body-mind, I'll tell you, Nama Rupa is Maya. It's illusion. So all these pattern shapes and forms, before you look into them and investigate and see that they are illusory. They call it a phenomenal manifestation. And the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So all this manifestation, phenomenal manifestation, it's all appearing or seeming to be real. But it's not real as it appears. In its essence, it is the one reality, as there is only that. But in the pattern, shapes and forms which it expresses as, are all illusory patterns which seems to be real. So that's what we're pointing to. The very fact that you are already that. And the search, you've probably been on some path trying to become that, or seeking to become one with God, if you like to wonder. But when you realise it's only that, there is nothing other than that, as you know already, because as you see it, that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower, it's all that, which we put the words on. How many words were you born with? When you look at it, you realise you weren't born with any words at all. You didn't pick up the words or learn any language till you're about 2.5, or somewhere around that age, when the capacity of reasoning develops. And fussing around your parents, or your parents fussing around you, you learnt words. And when you're told that you are little Billy or little Jane or whatever your name might be, and somebody asks you who you are, you'll say, I am Jane, or I am little Billy. You've taken on that word. Instead of recognising that you are the reality, you now believe you are this separate entity, this individual. It wasn't until you learnt those words that you could say that, because you didn't have any words for the first couple of years of your life. So how can you say you were born even? People say I was born, and they can remember their birth, but how could anyone remember their birth if you had no words to say? In the first couple of years of your life you didn't have any words, but you were living and born and in existing then. But then we would discriminate it when we learnt the words, make it work. Now when you look at that, you'll see it's only me that can be fearful. It's only me that can be unhappy. Me that can be depressed, or guilty, or jealous, or envy. Taking on these words, putting other concepts onto them, and got all this conceptual image about ourselves, which we call the ego, the self-centre, or the reference point. And everything becomes relative to this reference point, or ego, or self-centre. So all our problems are problems of relationship. That's what relativity is, relationship. Me and other than me. Recognise there is no relationship at all. It is the one essence that pattern, shapes and forms and experiences as everything. And every word you've ever spoken or ever likely to speak, the word is not the real, it's not the actual thing. Take the word water. Drink the word if you can. Have a drink of the word. You can't drink the word because it's not the water. The word fire, try and cook with the word fire. Burn yourself with it. Hurt yourself. Try and... I just said the word swimming. Take the water out of your body. Oh, no, I said that too. Anyway, recognise that the word's not the thing. And we've got all these words which believe it. Well, how does it all come about? You say, I was born, but can't remember your birth, you had no words. How did you come into existence? Well, people that have understood this will tell you that there's only life. Nisargadatta will tell you that. There is only life. There is nobody who lives a life. Life is all there is. Out of life, more life comes. And that, when you look into that, you'll see that's a fact too. There is nobody who lives a life. Out of life, more life comes, and life lives on life. How did you come into existence? Well, didn't you come into existence through the life of your parents? And aren't they coming from the life of their parents and the life of their parents? That pattern you call your father, that underlying life is in that pattern that you call your father. Through the essence of the food he's eating and the prana, in that life, a little microscopic particle called a sperm was formed. You can't see it with your naked eye. But that sperm was suffused with intelligence energy, with life. It knew what to do. And the same in that pattern shape you call your mother. That pattern shape and form you call your mother. In that life, another microscopic particle called an egg or an ovum formed. Again, which you can't see with your naked eye. That ovum was suffused with intelligence energy. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. And that knew what to do also. With the sperm knowing what to do, it swam to the ovum. Again, pointing out it wasn't just a willy-nilly activity that was going on. It was suffused with intelligence and knowing what to do. It knew where to swim to and what to happen, what to do, to attach itself, to penetrate the ovum. And when that ovum was penetrated, those two merging together, that cell doubled and doubled the life in it, doubled and formed the little embryo, the little fetus, which is what you are today. What were you doing about it then? Nothing. And you might think you're doing a lot about it now, but can you do any more about it now? You were beginning, the life was beginning then, and it's going on today. And you are the life itself, not the person, not the separate entity, not the individual. Life lives on life, and out of life more life comes. Christ told you a couple of thousand years ago, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. People thought he was talking about himself. He wasn't talking about himself, he was talking about that sense of presence that translates as a thought, I am. That I amness or sense of presence is the way. It is the truth, it is the life. And that is what I am. About the age of 2, somewhere around that age, the capacity of reasoning develops more and more in that little child, that little embryo, and it learns more words. And it hears parents tell us, you little Billy, you little Jane, or whatever you are, and say, I am this little Billy. And if someone asks you who you are today, you'll say, I am Billy or Jane or whatever your name might be. Instead of saying, I am the reality. That reality is absolute. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken away from it. So it's all absolute, it always has been, always will be. But we believe ourselves to be these human beings. If you recognise you are the absolute, what can be added to the absolute? Not a thing. Wouldn't be absolute if you could add anything to it. What can be taken away from it? Not a thing. Again, it wouldn't be absolute. But none of us recognise that. We all take ourselves to be this separate entity. But have a look at it though. If you were the absolute, and you realised it and understood it, could there be anyone inferior to you if you are the absolute? Or anyone superior to you? And what would you want from the other person? So a lot of these world problems would be taken away, would fall away, if you just realised and recognised your true nature. You are already that, which nothing can be added, nothing can be taken away. Nisargadatta tells you that when he says there's nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Have a look at that. Break that word imagination down to imagine, imagine, and realise that we are imagining all these problems and all these thoughts, things are conceptual images. Now an image is not the actual, it's not the real thing. Look in a mirror, you'll see reflections or images in the mirror. You've looked in the mirror, you probably look in the mirror every day. Ever go up to the mirror and try and grab your reflection out of it? Or the image out of it? You realise you can't. Because it's not there. But you can't say it's not there because it appears to be there. So you can't say it is, and you can't say it isn't. But you can recognise and know the truth about it. That applies to all these concepts and images in this world today. You can't say they are there, you can't say they are not there. But we imagine this, we imagine that. All stories we could concoct in the mind. So-and-so said something to me and I don't like it, I'm crooked on it, and blah, blah, blah. The story goes on and we beat ourselves up with the word. And the word's not the thing. I'm not good enough, or I'm fearful, or I'm unhappy, or I'm anxious, or I'm depressed. All words. Tells you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all that God is a word, another label we put on things. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. Have a look around you now. Haven't you got a word for everything? All made by the Word. But the Word's not the real. But we believe it is the real. Causes all the anger, the fear, the unhappiness, depression and guilt. All happening to this believed in me, this separate entity. It's only me that can be fearful. It's only me that can be anxious. Only me that can be depressed, guilty, or shameful, jealous, envy. Me is the cause of all the psychological problems. And the anger, the fear, the unhappiness and all this are the effects of the cause. Cause and effect isn't what they call karma, so-called karma. I've got to watch out for my karma. cause and effect. But what would happen if I investigated and looked and seen the cause was a fiction? And asked myself the simple question, can there be an effect if it's not related to a cause? Or can there be? Test it out for yourself and see. If I'm not relating to the cause, there can't be an effect. Well, where are all these problems that I've been beating myself up with all those years? Where are they going to lodge? If there's no cause for them to relate to. Don't you realise there can be freedom, peace and joy from all this conceptual conflict that's going on? We're beating ourselves up every day with the word, and the word's not the real. So recognise that. And wouldn't it be imperative that I look into the word and see if the word was the thing? See if I am this word or concept that I believe myself. And they tell you again in the scriptures that the false cannot stand up to investigation. You got these false concepts, ideas, which we've never looked into, never believed. We just take them for granted. When our parents told us, I am little Billy or little Jane, and you realise I am little Billy, and you looked over there and said, that doesn't fit Billy, so that's not me, or that's not my. That's when the sense of separation come upon you. And I've got this conceptual image that I'm now this person, and I kept reinforcing it. Went to school, and the school's reinforced it. And everybody around us, the parents and everybody, were reinforcing it. I start reinforcing it myself. And it's just a natural, to me, it's just become a natural way of functioning and a natural belief that I am this person. Not realising that's the cause of all my problems. And when I look into it and see that the false cannot stand up to investigation, and these concepts that I have are false, as the Buddha called it, a cognising emptiness. And we think we are cognising that emptiness. That's what we have the capacity of cognising, but it's not at all. We, as these persons, don't have the capacity of cognising at all. The cognising is happening. The knowing is happening. And we put the cognised or believed in entity on and believe in these forms and take on the idea that it's happening to me. That it's only me that can be fearful, only me that can be anxious. Me is the cause. So when I see that me is the cause and ask the simple question, if I'm not relating to the cause, me, can there be an effect? Well, there can't be an effect. And the Buddha told us that the emptiness is form. And he says the forms are nothing but the emptiness. So now I've got this conceptual image, this conceptual form, and I need to look into it and see if it's real or not. And just a little bit of looking into it and questioning it, I'll see that this me, or this I that I believe I am, can't do anything at all, because it is not what you are, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Existence, are you existing right now? Of course you are. Right here, right now, in this moment you are existing. Are you conscious right now? Well, you're not unconscious, are you? You're not unaware, are you? So you must be aware. You must be conscious. And are you happy to be right now? Well, you don't want to be dead right now, so of course you want to be. So you are already that. But we've got this concept on it and believe we are this person. But you already are that as the existence, consciousness, bliss. Another way of putting that is being, knowing and loving to be. Are you being right now? Of course you are. Are you knowing that? Of course I know that I am. Just natural. So I'm already that. So what's this idea I've got to become something? And becoming implies a future time. So we investigate time and see if that's as it appears to be too. And when you look into time, you see it's not that. Is there a past if you don't think about it? Have a look and see. Can I say there's a past if I don't think? I can't say anything at all without a thought. Is there a future if I don't think about it? The same with that, I can't say there's a past or future without thought. But I was in the past. Well, go back and try and live yesterday. Prove it to yourself right now. Live yesterday or live last week. You realise you can't go back and live last week or last year. You can recall it. But you can't recall it all either. You can only recall bits of it. The rest is gone and gone forever. So it's only what you can recall that you can label as the past. So past is just a mental concept. What about the future? And you say, I live in the future. And you realise you don't know what you're going to do when you leave here, or when this talk's finished. You don't know at all, but you can anticipate and imagine. So the future is only anticipation and imagining. And the past is gone, it's dead. Where's that leave you? Present and aware, right in this moment. So you are already that. This presence and awareness. This being, knowing and loving to be. Where does it all take place? Well, they call it a space-like awareness. You're not unaware right now. And awareness is like space. Space has no pattern, no shape, no form. What are we all sitting in here right now? We're sitting in the space. Does the space have any boundaries to it? Does it have any centre to it? Can you grasp it? You can't. But can you postulate or think of anything at all that could be outside of space? What would it be in? And you realise it'd be in something that'd have to be in space. So you see, we can't say what space is because it has no pattern, shape or form. But you can't say it is not either. And you can't postulate or anything outside of space, so everything must be the content of space. So you're a thing, I'm a thing, the tree's a thing, the flower's a thing, all this manifestation are things. Space is no thing. And everything is appearing, or seemingly so, in space. Space is no thing. Can the content of space be anything at all? It can't. So though we are appearing, and seemingly as these pattern shapes and forms, we are the no thing that's appearing as everything. So recognise that you are already that. That is all there is. That is all there ever was. That is all there ever will be. And I think it was Moses on the mountain who was in charge of all these Jewish people, and they were all no law or order going on. And he thought he'd like to do something to control them. They're playing up, and he's sitting pondering over it all. And he goes, "Who shall I say sent it?" It came to him. There and then, this thought came to him, which formed the commandments or the tablets. And he says, "Well, I've got to take these down and sell them to the people. If they follow these rules, they might become better, live a bit more comfortably." But then again, he says, "I've got to take these down and try and tell them to the people. But who shall I say sent me?" And the thought came to him there and then, "Tell them that I am sent you." And he realised in that moment, I am that I am. And can any of you say anything different when you look into it? You can't. You know that you are. You know that translates to the thought I am. So that I amness is the sense of presence. It's not the thought. The thought is not the same as any other thought, it's just a concept. But it expresses as the sense of presence. The story I am. That's why Christ could tell you, I am the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. He realised it wasn't repeating I am, it was recognising that sense of presence. And the scriptural statement is, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What are you free from? The bondage of belief that you are this person, this separate entity. Have a look at that word belief. We believe this, we believe that. But have a look at it. Get your dictionary out and see. The definition of belief is an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. I mean, we haven't reasoned it out, we haven't looked at it, we've accepted it, which you did when you learnt words. We accepted that the parents told you you're little Johnny and you said, I am little Johnny, instead of saying that that's the name that they put on. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason, acceptance of an alleged fact, without positive knowledge or proof. When you put your beliefs under that test and have a look at them, you might recognise and realise what we're pointing at. You might see it in a different light, see it in a different way, but from that recognising you'll know the truth and be free. So that's what I'm pointing to, and I ask you to look along those lines, and that'll do me. And Cat will say a few words, then throw it open, and you can all get stuck into it and tear it to pieces, or enjoy it, or do what you like. So away you go. Oh, maybe I better have a hear something.
Yes. So, welcome again, everyone. We have 20 people with us online, and we have a few good morning, everyone messages from our online community, and a good question, really good question from Gioti. Is it possible to get further clarity on cause and effect that Bob refers, please? This still holds true in the physical sense. If someone tumbles and falls, they are likely to be injured with or without an attachment to me. Thank you. Okay, so I'll answer. I wanted Bob to answer it, but he's busy.
Yeah.
I know. So the first thing about the karma and the cause and effect, and the most important part of that definition which Bob uses, is investigate the me, which is a cause of all psychological suffering. This is not a cause of physical pain. And as you rightfully notice, yes, that's right, physical pain is inevitable. The body, whether there is attachment to me or no attachment to me, like if you look at the cats that are roaming around here, they still get sick, they still get old, they still get injured. And cats, as far as we know, do not imagine to have a little controller in the head that runs the show. So it is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable, suffering, psychological suffering, is totally avoidable. So if the trip and falls happens, it's not that I fall because I tripped. It is the whole universe. It is just everything, including the quality of sleep, including the weather, the atmospheric pressure, the conditioning. The whole world is like a surface of the ocean. When the wave rises here, the water goes down there. So it is all interconnected. So it's not that there is a singular cause. Because I tripped, I fall and injured myself. But yes, the pain that is caused by the trip seem like very kind of simple cause and effect, and it is completely unrelated to the imagined me. It's unrelated to any imagination. So I hope it clarifies. We are not claiming that without the imagined self, injury can't happen, because you can see the fires happen to trees. Trees obviously don't claim any imagined self. So the disclaimer is the psychological suffering here. And still, cause and effect, Bob pointed out and Nisargadatta pointed out, is not a singular sort of a connection, like there is a day because there is a night. Well, you could say that for the convenience, but really it all depends on 10,000 things. And Jyoti said it does clarify, thank you. Wonderful. Did you want to add anything to it? No, so that was the only question, and now we open it up for everyone to share, to contribute, ask questions, tell us what works for you, what pointers are really striking home, or which ones need further clarification. As Bob said, we have a lot of people here with either very good clarity or complete clarity, and yeah, we invite them to help each other. There is only one. Julia?
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking out loud, I guess.
Share.
Do that.
What? It's hard to comment after something like this, you know? So it's like it's hard to say anything. What can't add to the perfection.
Try it.
It's fruitless, pointless.
It's gonna be perfect.
Yeah, well. I can't, it's hard to even come up with anything to, I'm like, at the same time I'm wanting to, just to keep the room moving.
Thank you.
I was thinking a little bit about what that person said about the cause and the effect. I guess what's coming to mind is actually something I saw Gilbert write once on Facebook. I just loved it, about Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Yeah, he was talking about Mickey Mouse and all that, the dream character and all that. Can you get anything real out of that? Will there be a real mouse that would come out? When you see that the mouse or Mickey Mouse or whatever, it's always been fictitious. What happens to the drama of the me?
Don't sound so disappointed.
She's
shattered. Thank God.
So one thing that Bob pointed out years ago that I heard was all directions are in the mind. All dimensions are in the mind. You know, and the story of me is a story, and a story has storylines. And you follow the line of the story, and it's either good or unpleasant or whatever. But it's a story. And, you know, the other thing that struck me from Bob's first book was watch the mind and see how it operates. It's such a simple and direct, not an instruction, just not an invitation, just a pointer. Watch the mind. Well, who's going to watch the mind? You know, that's what the mind comes up with. Yeah. I'm watching the mind. But, you know, consciousness, this is a really fundamental thing about consciousness. Consciousness is independent. And what does the word independent mean? It means it's not influenced by anything outside of itself. So, I am the consciousness. You are the everyone is the consciousness. It's not influenced by anything outside of itself because consciousness is all there is. No matter how it, you know, the content of consciousness is not separate from the consciousness. So all the drama and the geometric patterns and the sacred geometry and all the rest of it, all the things that are going on are nothing but the consciousness. But what is my identity? Who is watching the mind? And as Bob pointed out, the cognition is happening. The cognizing emptiness is happening spontaneously. The seeing is happening spontaneously. The hearing, the knowing is happening spontaneously. Where does this me come in and say, I'm doing this? Siddhara Rameshwar said, the arm moves and the arrogating eye says, I did that. These are really very direct pointers. And am I willing, and who am I to be willing or not willing, to have a look at this, watch the mind and see how it operates? The consciousness is independent. It doesn't change. And this is a significant thing that one can actually recognise. So, you know, the character is up and down depending on moods and what's happening and everything. It's dependent on external circumstances. It's not real. So come back to the fact that I am the consciousness, and then try and stabilise with that. Trying, you know, who's trying? It's just the stories are endless, and if you watch the mind and stop following thoughts and storylines, something dawns. You can't say what it is, you can't pin it down. It's ephemeral, it's timeless. Awareness is timeless. It doesn't change. And we're constantly being bowled over by the changing and wanting this and wanting that. So just be quiet, watch the mind, see what happens.
Beautiful. Jacinta?
Hi. This morning I was walking before here and I saw some people that I hadn't seen for quite a few years. They just lived around the corner. And I could see the mind trying to make excuses for myself and blah, blah, blah. But as soon as I said, who's thinking that thought, and just let go, it was just pure bliss. And I just said, hello, how you going? And there was no story. It was just bliss. So, that happened to me this morning. So I hope it's simple for people to understand.
Brilliant example. Yeah. See how the thought comes in a way to steal the show and cover up the reality of the mystery of the moment.
I know the mind was trying to make excuses where I live, what had happened, why I wasn't living there, and I let go of the whole story, and it was good.
That's gorgeous. That's what actually in Course in Miracles is called a miracle.
Oh, is it?
Suddenly that whole construct of the world overlaying that simple moment of incredible, mysterious unfolding get covered up with that construct, and when it drops away, suddenly there's like almost like not just perspective shift, it's a paradigm shift. Out of being me trying to justify, work it out, find excuses,
I know.
it opens up and whoa. And those little miracles are wonderful. Thank you for bringing it up. It happens to every one of us on every occasion, every day. Just even noticing it, how the mind invites you for the little trip into that confined daydream. And when the invitation is being ignored, the opening up, that's just lovely. And it is simple. It's that simple.
Yeah. But it tricks you up, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's tricked me up for many years, but yeah.
Yeah, that is its function. That its job. You know, as the program which is designed to look after the survival and comfort of the body. Part of this program is to constantly look out for innovations and improvement, as a growth and. Everything that it does seeks for something else, something better than that. But this is just a software. When you recognize that this is just a program, how it works, it is doing its job the way it is designed to do it. There is no need to subscribe to it and take it to be the reality or the truth. Because reality or the truth is what is happening right now. What is being sensed, seen, or even that is a dream in essence. But without the concept dream, not dream, this is what's happening.
Thank you. For the sake of releasing a little bit of stress through speaking in a public place, which is what I'm doing now. So there were two people on YouTube that I watched a few years ago that debate about the definition of consciousness, and one of them defined consciousness in a way that I loved it. He mentioned consciousness is that with which all experience is known, that in which all experience is appears, and that out of which all experience is made. This is one thing. Another thing is the response to the person who talk about or ask about the cause and effect. So if we consider or assume the beginning of the forms as 13.8 billion years ago, which is the calculation by considering the linear time which is orbiting the Earth around the Sun, we non-dualists consider the whole reality from 13.8 billion years ago till this moment as a singular event. So the reality is a singular event. Because the reality is a singular event, it will be nonsense to say one event caused another, because it's a whole singular eventing, so-called. Thank you.
Yeah. Oopsie. No? Oh, I thought you wanted a mic. Oh, Adrian, can you pass on Julia? Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Always beautiful resonance. I don't really know what I'm going to say, but I just want to grab the microphone. But what came up for me is like the energetic field is already there. It's boundless, timeless, whatever. And not an arrogance, but this thing, like life is just set. There's no separation, and yet this thing wants to come on and claim, I've got this separate life to the immensity of life. Just like if you really look at it, the immensity of life already functioning is there, and then this thing coming in saying, oh, but this bit is separate, and I'm running it, and it's just seeing that really. That's that thing appearing and claiming it, like it's already sort of like it's after the fact as well. Like the life is already there, the awareness is already there, and then there's this thing coming after the fact, appearing on it and sort of saying, I'm separate and I'm doing all this stuff. And it's fighting with what is actually happening. It's like what is happening, and it wants to get on there and change the script and say it should be this way or this way, and it's just fighting with something that it has no ability to actually directly change anyway. Yeah. So it's just, but it'll kick up a stink for a long time until it finally, I don't know, feels like it gives up after a while, like the pain gets too much or something, and something clicks or something shifts, and what is, it gets stronger and sees through it more. And it becomes the reality rather than the mind-based reality. But anything that's a thought that's searching or looking is already stepping out of what is. Yeah. And that's the giveaway. Mm-hmm. Any searcher, any unhappy, any not contentness is stepping out of what is, and it's seeing that whole story and character. I don't know. Yeah. I haven't had much sleep, but
that's beautiful.
That's why I have a hard time talking sometimes, because it's like stepping out. I'll say something.
Yeah, just back to cause and effect. I just think it's, it's an old story to keep people in ignorance. We've been taught since children, as Bob so rightly points out, that we're separate, and that there's a me that is responsible for this, that, and the other. And if that me doesn't do what it's told, well, there's going to be repercussions to that me. So, and that goes back thousands of years too. You're going to go to hell, you're going to, things are going to go wrong, it's all your fault and blah, blah, blah. So it's a very old story saying that you're a separate entity and it's your ball game, really. But we all know that's just a story.
Yeah. Beautiful. And Jyoti says, thanks again for subsequent responses too. Yeah, so that's a beautiful insight, that separation thing, that it somehow gets so much attention that it is taken for granted as reality. Because for the practical uses of the body, of course, there is perceived separation of this body from other bodies and from the space. And again, it has practical uses. It is nothing wrong. The cats, they don't consider themselves one body if there are two of them. But they don't have a story about it. They don't have the narrative saying that now I am right, you are wrong. They still provide for the body. They're still seeking for comfort. All those programs that are designed to do their job, they're doing their job. But they don't cause psychological suffering because there is no attachment to the personal story.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, Kat, as always. Sitting here, kind of listening to Bob and listening to everyone talk and share, just kind of slowly over the hour or whatever, this energy, I can just feel this energy not building up or like filling out. It's almost like letting go, and then what's left is just like vibrant. Like it just feels vibrant in here. Like there's so much life and, I don't know, love, or there's just this beautiful being sitting here listening to everybody. And as soon as Bob finished talking, I felt like there's this urge to say something, like this energy, there's an urge to express it or something, and then this voice comes in and it's like, is that true, or is that the ego wanting to assert itself? And there's this kind of monitoring, like, oh, is that real, or is that something else? And as soon as Gilbert spoke, he pretty much hit that nail on the head. It's like this monitor comes in, and it's not, is that the ego, is that true? It's just the urge is there, and there's nothing else to it. There's just an urge, and this searching for the source of the urge is kind of the trick almost. That's the trap to fall into. And I've had this weird feeling sitting here. I've never sat here before, and when I sit here I can see myself in the mirror and I feel like I'm on a Zoom call at work where you try not to, but all you do is sit there, you look at other people, and then you have this little video of yourself and you see yourself and inevitably you become obsessed with checking yourself. It's like, is my hair okay? Like, or you can't help it. And it never happens in real life, because in real life you don't have that mirror, but you do have this thought, always like self-obsessed thought going on. And I just had this awesome discovery last week that in my Zoom calls I can hide that little window that shows my face. And as I was sitting here, I realised, and I think as Gilbert spoke and everyone spoke, it was like, you hide this little window, and then you're just there paying attention to what's in front of you, not self-obsessed, not constantly thinking in on yourself. And there's this beautiful freedom that I've discovered, at least in my work calls now, where I can hide that window and I'm just listening. And maybe 50% of this self-obsession slips away because you're not focusing on this image of yourself. And that was just a beautiful thing, that kind of awareness of why this is so freeing to do at work is kind of like an analogy for real life. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you. Fantastic.
That's great. Yeah.
Good.
Gilbert.
Yeah. That reminded me of something I heard many years ago. A story of a dervish, and he had the most magnificent beard of all dervishes in his area. It was magnificent beard, and he became aware of the vanity that was connected with this beard, so he decided he was going to cut it off, but he thought he'd better check with the master first, and he went to the master and told him, I've decided to cut my beard off. And the master said, why? It's a beautiful beard. And he said, well, it's the vanity, He said, keep the beard, deal with the vanity.
Beautiful. Yeah.
My mum used to say, vanity, vanity, all is vanity.
In the Bible.
All
is vanity under the sun. What is not under the sun?
And it is really the self-love in love with itself. It's really, like Nisargadatta says, every movement, which means every creation, every pattern, every shape, every form, is an expression of that one life or one love. So everything, even ugliness, is the love longing for itself. It's a child of love. It's a movement. And we call it ugliness only so we can appreciate its opposite. If not for ugliness, there wouldn't be beauty. So it is inherently, it's inseparable. So that's, amazing. I love the metaphor. I love the metaphor of the beard and vanity. But also about Zoom, yes, focusing on the image. It doesn't have to be in the mirror. When the mirror is not there, the self-obsession is still focusing on the image. I don't even have to see the image to think of the image. How do I look? What do they think about me? what I think about me, do I have to improve, grow? All that focusing on the image. Yes, when it is in front of you and you look at it, it may be a little bit more kind of amplified. But even for people walking down the street, and I was one of them not that long ago, focusing on the image. What does it mean to me? What is it for me? What is it, like everything was related to that imagined self, which doesn't exist, never did.
I don't know how related this is to non-duality, but what's coming to my mind is just a story. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Patch Adams. Robin Williams did a movie about him. And after the movie, he did a documentary called Clown Vets. And what he did was he got these big, burly Army veterans with PTSD. They're all suicidal PTSD Army vets. Want to kill themselves. Gets them somehow to wear tutus and clown noses and brings them down to Guatemala where they do clowning. And they just get silly and they play with balloons and rubber chickens with little kids in Guatemala. And for all of them, what happens is they usually will tell the story that they don't have the depression anymore. And I think what's happening is they're not thinking about themselves. I mean, it's that fucking me in the Zoom call. It's the problem, huh? So they're not giving attention to that me. Or the story about the me. Or the story of any of that. They're just being with those little Guatemalan kids and that's all that's happening. And it's not really non-duality, I guess, but it kind of points in the same direction if you stop thinking about that imaginary me.
Yeah, everything's one.
Well, it is the same.
Yeah. Huh?
It is the same.
And it is one. It's not that something is and something isn't, non-duality or duality. It's all one. It's a nice example. It's really the way most of, if you look at the majority of humans, how they self-medicate that angst, existential angst, is by getting busy, by getting creative, getting artistic, getting the attention away from that angst and investing it in either helping other or destroying other or doing whatever else that diverts that attention away. And then there is a bunch of people who actually put that attention right in, and that's called investigation. And it has lasting effect because you don't depend, once it is seen through, you are not depending on that sedative or medicine of getting busy with clowning or getting busy with saving the world or getting busy with painting or doing music. You are, the freedom is freedom from all need for drugs, alcohol, sex, anything, because whatever the body does now in its story is not essentially your true nature, it's just the expression.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And there's nothing right or wrong about it. If the life chooses, and the life doesn't really consciously choose because it is conscious only when it expresses as the consciousness. But anyway, if in one or the other pattern it chooses itself to experience and express as the tree, or as a villain, or as the hero, and it's nothing right or wrong. It's not that someone who looks into or investigates is in any better position than anyone else, because there isn't anyone else. It's just one essence, experiencing and expressing. As that one essence, you all of it. You're the one who found the truth. You're the one who seeks for the truth. And you're the one who realizes there's nothing to find or seek for. Or you are the one. And admiring the expression or loving the stories and sharing it without taking any position or judgment, or even with seeing assumed positions or judgments. It's just how it dances. We had a few emails. Oh yeah. No, you go.
Just on the Zoom calls, I presented to 173 people, week before last on Zoom, and that would have been impossible for me had I not had these teachings. So thank you very much to Bob and Kat for these teachings, because I would have been too self-conscious. I wouldn't have been able to do it. And if I did do it, I would have prepared for like maybe 3 weeks and memorised it all. And then been so nervous. But I just did it. And the curious thing about the Zoom call was I started off really well, and then the gallery was in the way, so I had to hide the gallery so I couldn't see anyone. And because the internet kept dropping out, like the week before it had dropped out on me 3 or 4 times, I thought, well, maybe they're all gone. Maybe there's no one there and I'm just talking to myself. So I kind of just kept going, hoping that they were still there. They were, luckily. But I don't know what the message was there, but the reflection back of all them back to me as well. All of a sudden, is there anyone there at all?
Anyone?
Were you going to read something?
No, we don't actually have any more questions.
Yeah, yesterday I had this experience, very blissful, of just being you, and I was you and the sky, and there was no you and me in the sky, and it was just everything and nothing, and it was lovely.
How about now?
That, there's sort of a little bit of a veil of, I don't know,
I don't know, it's good.
Okay.
What's the veil made of?
It's made of thought. That's what it is. It's made of thought.
How did you do that?
I didn't.
You didn't? Cool. Did you buy it from Woolies or?
Probably started buying these things when I was 2. But anyway, there was a. I guess what's coming to my mind in a moment is that. Do you, Bob or Kat, ever just sort of know exactly what's going on in my head without my being here? Like you can see what I'm seeing or whatever? Why would you not see what I'm seeing if you were me?
Why would we care? Just thoughts. I mean,
okay, go ahead. You have something to say about that?
The me cannot see. The me is an imaginary entity that's supported by belief. It can't see, it can't hear, it can't do anything. It's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse is not going to jump out of the cinema screen and come and shake your hand or give you some popcorn. It's a fiction. You have to see that it's a fiction.
I can see that. I think what I'm saying, I can see that it's a fiction.
Yeah. What about the veil?
That's a fiction too.
Okay. So if you don't give it substance, then is there a veil?
No, there's no veil.
Okay. I rest my case, Your Honour.
Lovely. Yeah.
I surrender.
Me too.
Bob, would you want to say something? No? Yeah.
Sorry,
I think in the first instance one needs to do the investigation in order to know who you really are. You really need to dig deep and have a look. I like to say in the privacy of one's own illusory mind, if you like, but you can't do it in a group, you have to do it where you're alone. When you're alone and really, really genuinely looking, if you do that, you'll discover who you really are. You'll see who you really are as. But after that, then, you are assailed by the mind still, with its tendencies, and in that moment you need to apply the rule, if you like, of just simply being aware. And the more that you attend to that duty, you're just simply being the deep awareness that you are, all thoughts will clean themselves up of their own accord. and then the mind will be liberated as well as knowing who you are. Thank you.
Mm.
Just something that Julia said before about a veil. Not necessarily a clouded mind. The veil might also be you're in a blissful state. You suddenly realise there's this transparent nature that appears. And it's sort of like a veil. It's completely transparent, and yet it's there. And you suddenly realise that there is a kind of luminosity. And it's like seeing the light separate from the objects and the scene that's obviously there. And it's a slight kind of revealing of this true nature. And it appears like the very finest of veils. But you're in a blissful state, so you're not identified with a separate self or a self-image. It's like they describe as seeing the light. It's just the natural beauty of something. Just reflected back.
Beautifully said.
I'll just make a small disclaimer, because it sometimes happens and it's completely innocent and very inclusive to speak in a way that, oh, you do this, or you look at that, and like you look deeply in the solitude, don't look in the group. That is inclusive and kind, but that may also somehow create the confusion that that's how you gotta do it, because that's how it happened to me. And that's not entirely true, because Bob saw through it in a group of people. Nisargadatta pointed it out, and bah, that was a group. I was in Bob's presence. That was just like, And again, it wasn't really achieved by any doing. That shift of paradigm, or the dissolution of a paradigm, really, where there is no I am the me and now I am the space. No, that I am is there, but I is nothing anymore. That is no definition anymore. It happens or it doesn't happen, and there is really no condition to it. And yet we still appreciate everyone who shares it in a way that is beautiful and inclusive. Just that little disclaimer. It's not a criticism at all. It's just to make sure that it is highlighted that it does not have any conditions or rule. That no, you do this, you sit 20,000 hours of meditation like some suggest, or you go into the IM for that long, or you stay for 3 years. Those things are just pointers which have no application because there is no one to apply it.
You can't become what you already are.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And even the veil, as Gilbert beautifully pointed out, exists only when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
When you label it, when you kind of imagine a situation that there is something in a way, and of course that imagination becomes an experience because it's believed. It is just what is, moment to moment. It's just what is, without even needing to name it in any way.
Good question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by this conversation about particularly the distraction, especially in relation to what you just said about there's no condition. Yeah. Because I find myself always struggling with guilt of not being dedicated enough.
you know, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I shouldn't distract myself. And yet you're saying there are no conditions. So shouldn't I just relax and just distract myself?
Yes, absolutely.
But then how do you know if you're distracting yourself to avoid something, or if you're doing it because you can just witness it, it's just an expression of your nature?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, Gilbert explained it really well when he was quoting Siddharameshwar, or was he quoting? That the arm moved and the eye takes credit for it. There is nothing that imagined self or the Mickey Mouse can ever do. So every idea that I'm doing something wrong or I should be doing something different is just taking credit. Everything is just life waving. There is nothing that individual does right or wrong, because there is no individual. So it is really just stepping back. Whatever is happening, distraction is happening, or relaxation is happening, whatever is happening, you are the space of consciousness in which that happens. Just remembering to relax and being who you are, the space in which distraction happens, relaxation happens, the judgment, the doing, the non-doing, all of it happens as it is conditioned. The body-mind is conditioned to act as it does. And it happens within the field of consciousness. So relaxing back out of any idea that I should or shouldn't or do or...
Sure.
Yeah.
I also, somehow the distraction can be compulsive, to avoid, actively avoid looking in.
Yeah.
And then it's very hard to observe it.
Yes.
Or you can, in fact. But, you know, you may actually distract yourself so that you don't have to step back, in a way, that you want to get involved into something. And then you step back and you do, it's a bit like meditation, I suppose, and you go, oh, I did it again. Yeah.
What's the you that distracts?
What's the you that distracts?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's a bit like any addiction, really. It feels, you know. It's the Mickey Mouse not wanting to, or thinking it's itself.
Just
Don't
a
know.
reflex. It's just a learned action, like a point, a standpoint that you go back to just because you've learned. Yeah.
Maybe a habit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what it is. It's years and years of training, like Bob said, since you were 2 and started learning things and absorbing things and training the software, like, you know, to go back to a certain position of this is me, a believed me, which obviously isn't real, but that's just where it keeps going back to until it's seen deeply enough and clearly enough over and over until it's seen through pretty much, and it slowly dissolves. It's it takes, and it can be difficult, of course, at different times, but the more it's seen and the more clearly that it's seen, it's slowly sort of loses its hold, I think.
No.
Not really, no. It's and that sort of brings, like, it's another thing I've been thinking about a little bit lately as well, is the deconstruction of words, which Bob does a bit. You break down the word to see what it actually means, and I think a big one that we sort of touch on a lot is desire. And I was breaking that down the other day, and so D to move away from or to undo, and Saya, which is Saya is another name for Lord, so another name for consciousness or God, or in the animal world, Saya is a breeding animal, so a creator. So to move away from your true nature, so every time we desire something, when you want something, you're moving away from your true position, like what you really are. So every time you desire, you're moving away from your authentic sort of being, your awareness, and Yeah, so desiring is keeping you away. Yeah, so like, and I was just thinking the only sort of desire you could sort of want is to be free from desire. Like that's the ultimate desire, to have no more desires. Yeah, it's. Well, that's probably the last one that you'd ever sort of want. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thought it just occurred to me that you were quite aware, actually, of what your mind was doing in that moment, weren't you?
Yeah.
Not unaware, you were quite aware.
In that moment, you mean in most of the moments of my life?
Yeah, well, in any moment, true.
Sometimes. Yeah.
No, yeah. Well, we try to get out of awareness, you see. We can't really look at it. You are aware all the time.
Yes, yeah. And the desire we're talking about is a bit like the beard. You know, you want to leave the beard on and the desire can stay. You know, it doesn't need to go. You need to deal with your identification with a person who desires rather than remove all desires and live in a hut.
Yeah, the desires could be there, but as long as you're not owning.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Vivek. He says, I exist without any attributes. Is that it does not require any proof.
It is the proof.
It is the proof of itself, yes. And exactly, desire of its own is just a label for the energy that moves. And any other label, liking, disliking, whatever the body is conditioned to do, body is doing the digestion, body is doing the thinking, or body, mind, whatever the whole machinery. And we don't claim credit for digestion or for growing hair. Don't need to claim credit for the narrative. It's just the function, it's just how it functions. And as you say, you actually could manage to see how the distractions come into being. So the great point, Peter. You just really wear the consciousness, the witnessing presence in which the activity has been witnessed. Now the subtly comes, oh, it shouldn't be this way. That could also be witnessed. Oh, there is a little veil there. Oh, that could also be witnessed. And all those things are just the waves on the ocean. They're fascinating. If there is no preference or like or dislike or judgment, they all equally fine. They're fascinating. The body, of course, will color things. That sweet is good and bitter is bad, because that's linked to survival. But that space, witnessing presence, it also witness body with its likes and dislikes and preferences. And it also doesn't judge the desires or anything. The space is always neutral and all enveloping and welcoming, and stepping back from that tendencies into that all allowing and enveloping space. That's the key. We had questions from people who are so beautifully admirable. They actually really resonate with the way Bob points it, but they don't speak a word in English. So they sit with Google Translate, they email, they use YouTube Translate. They have really valid questions. One of the questions was actually this from Sin Sin Ming. How to transcend the likes and the dislikes? Well, first of all, who would be transcending what? For the space, it doesn't need to transcend anything whatsoever. The body, mind, doesn't need to change or fix or stop or start anything. It is already working as it should. It's just that somewhere along the way, the image, the imagined self came into the picture. And it kind of sits halfway through between the space and between the body. And it vacillates. Oh yeah, I'm this, I like this, I don't like that. No, I'm not this, I don't this also can be witnessed. It is like a shadow picture on the screen. And yeah, go on.
I don't know why, but I'm reminded of one of the Zen stories there's some fantastic Zen stories. And this one is, there's a monk who's been with the monastery for 20 years, and he's going for a walk with the master in the mountains, just the two of them, and it's a beautiful day, and the monk says to the master, "Master, I've been a faithful monk, I've been with you for 20 years, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it." And the master says, "Well, let's just sit down here on the grass for a moment." And they sit down, and then the master says, "Do you hear that bell ringing in the valley?" And the monk says, "Yeah, I hear the bell ringing." "Do you hear that dog barking in the valley?" "Yeah, I hear the dog barking." That's it. Everything is that. That's it. You hear the traffic, the tram going by. It's all that.
Yeah. It's all that.
That's right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Captain Bob.
That's all, folks.
Thank you.